Hey, Chicago. What do you say? Cubs gonna win today.
Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
This episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Didn't file with TurboTax last year? That's in the past. Now, Taxes is getting the TurboTax app and filing your own taxes for free if you didn't file with them last year. File by February 18th. All tax forms, all 100% free. Now, this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. New filers and filers who didn't use TurboTax last year only must start and file your own taxes in-app by February 18th. Excludes TurboTax Live. Full terms at TurboTax.com.
Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the Vehicle Owner's Manual for important feature limitations and information.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise Podcast. It's time for the baseball podcast with National Baseball writer David Brown. David, how are you?
Hi, Andy. Oh, no one can see me, right? Except
yeah,
you.
Oleg, when you wave at the camera. Did you know he did that?
Yeah.
When I introduced him last week, he waved.
Right. This is radio, not television, Hans.
Yeah, that's right. It was nice of you to wave.
What was the question? Oh, how am I doing?
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I took a nap. And I'm, like an old person does, and I'm ready to go.
Guess how I'm doing? I had an incredible experience today.
How are you doing? Oh no,
I didn't get a prostate exam. I went in, they weighed me. It was fine. I weighed the same as I did last time.
Good for you.
But they wanted to measure me.
I'm sorry.
And since I was like 17, I've been 6'2.5". Today, I'm 6'3".
People are supposed to be shrinking.
I'm over 50 now, and I'm taller than I used to be. I have a feeling it was operator error on the. She was nowhere near my height and was kind of jumping, but she looked at it and she goes, 6'3", and wrote it down, and now it's on.
Sounds
my chart.
scientific.
It's on my chart now that I'm 6'3", so I'm very excited. My brother's 6'3", and I'll bet he's not anymore because he's older than me. He's shrinking. I'm growing.
I remember meeting you. I want to say at a Cubs convention.
Yeah.
And I don't remember you being that tall, but maybe I just try
I'm normal height. I'm 6'2".
Normal for some people, not all of us.
Wow.
Well, congratulations on your
it's very exciting.
increase.
Very exciting. I also because of the age I am, I found out they're going to mail me a box for me to poop in. Also very excited about this. She said, do you want to get a colonoscopy or would you rather get the Cologuard first? I'm like, oh, is that the one where you poop in the box? And she said, yes. I said, I want that. Even if I do the other one, I want to poop in a box.
It's for people who are like cats.
So I can't wait to, I don't know how it works. I envision that there's like a screen that you just put over the bowl and you just shit in it. And then you just take that thing and just throw it back in the box. And then I'm going to do a haphazard job of sealing it so that its contents might spill out. I don't know.
My wife did that, but she did not share any of the details about. All I know is I saw the box in the bathroom, and it was there until she used it, and we didn't really talk about the details.
My wife got one in the mail, got mad, and refused to take it. She told the doctor she didn't want to do it. The doctor still put it in. It got sent to our house, and she would not do it. She said, I'd rather die of colon cancer than poop in this box. And I'm like, oh, well, that seems dumb. But I told her to really screw with the doctors and just take one of the dogs, turds, put that in there, see if the dogs have colon cancer.
I wonder if that would work.
Yeah. She's like, well, you're really overdoing the kibble, Mrs. Dolan. We're a little worried. And it's funny because about this time last year, we have Aetna Insurance, and they made a mistake, and we both got we both got postcards mailed to us, congratulating us on passing our screenings, and neither one of us had done it. And then a couple of days later, we got another postcard that said, "Please disregard if you got one and you did not take the test. Please disregard it. You did not pass the test you didn't take." So here's a great segue from this conversation to the first topic.
I'm sure it is,
especially now that you are Twins intensive. I, like a lot of people, was unaware of this until we saw the 2-minute explanation by Rocco Baldelli.
It's a great way to be introduced to it, though.
About the Twins rally sausage.
Which was great because he's like, for those of you who
weren't paying attention. It was
for those of you who haven't been following along, it was like he was doing PR or something. It was masterful. It was so the Twins have an idol now. They've started a new religion around summer sausage, and they've been hitting well ever since the sausage came about. It's kind of a accidental creation because Kyle Farmer got like a care package or something like that, and he got this sausage as part of it, and he didn't really like it. It wasn't something that he wanted, so he said, "Hey, I'm going to leave this on the clubhouse in anybody who wants it, you can have it, and presumably go home and eat it or whatever, or eat it at your locker. I don't know." So he didn't even want it, and the hitting coach and another player, Ryan Jeffers, kind of how men are when they get together. It's like, we could do something with this, and it became like a good luck charm that they would throw at guys when they hit a home run, and then it's like, but so it's like this. It's not a wiener, or it is. It's like a big wiener, and but like oversized. So as Rocco put it, a very substantially packaged.
It is. It's girthy for summer sausage.
So and it's become one of those silly things. The Royals had a rally mantis, this bug that came in the dugout a few years ago, and the Cubs had the Shawanometer, which is just like somebody keeping track of Dunstan's batting average in the bleachers. So baseball teams have these superstitions, and Rocco, the manager, is explaining it like it's real, like it might be. I mean, I think they all know that it isn't real, but they are just scared to death to treat it as if it's fake. So
you never mess with a streak, and that's what they're doing. They're not messing with it. I enjoyed Rocco's. He was very concerned that the packaging will fail, and that because the summer sausage has gone unrefrigerated now for quite a while, that
he's a very practical guy, and I've heard talk of them replacing. And I don't know how that would work.
I don't think that would work.
I don't think it from a baseball superstitious standpoint would work, but you have to, I guess, keep it. You keep bagging it double bagging it in Ziploc bags or whatever, just to make sure it doesn't open and stink everywhere. You've got another consideration. They've got to go to Canada.
Oh yeah, you gotta get it through customs.
So I hope they don't have a road trip in Turks and Caicos, because you keep all kinds of weird stuff in your luggage there, and you can go to jail real easily.
I remember coming back from Puerto Rico. We had to get you have to go through like the you have to get the agricultural sticker.
Anything to declare? Going to Hawaii.
Yes,
even
I hated it here. That was actually right. We very much enjoyed Puerto Rico, but the Cubs don't, for a while they haven't had anything like that, but they did. I think in 2015. They had a fake microphone in the dugout, and they would pretend to interview guys after they hit home runs. And I
don't remember that, but that sounds wonderful.
And then they had a phone for a while that wasn't hooked to anything. And if you hit a home run, someone would act like the president was calling you or something, and you would talk on the phone. And they don't do that anymore.
Yeah, teams have their lots of teams have different things. The Blue Jays have this very bad jacket that people will wear, and they'll put on, come here, sir, like you're at a haberdasher or whatever. And
it's like it's like you were on Cheers and you had to go up to Melville's to use the bathroom, and they gave you you had to wear a coat and tie. They'd give you the clip on and the jacket, and you had to wear that to go into the restaurant.
So, but the funny thing about the whole thing is that Farmer, he dismisses the sausage, then the team begins to pray to it and treat it like a religion. Farmer still hasn't hit. He's still not hitting.
That's why.
So it's like you effed up, son. But so we'll see if he stays around long enough to get going sausage or not.
Well, he should. If they try to release him, he should tell him he's taking the sausage if he goes.
Right. Oh, he's got that kind of leverage. You're right. That's a good point.
Shit, I guess we can't send him out. We need it. We need the sausage.
So ever since then, they've been hitting better, and they've got as we speak, an 8-game winning streak going, and it helps when you play the White Sox sometimes, but and that's been part of it. But the Twins are better, and there's lots of sausage, and there's lots of, it's kind of dangerous. It's double entendres, obviously, and male virility weirdness, and there's female reporters around, so it's like let's try and control ourselves, boys, kind of a thing. But it's a major sub story right now with the Twins season.
I hadn't seen it until Jeffers threw it at one of the
probably Santana. You've seen the
that's
Santana
right. I believe it was Carlos Santana, and he hit a home run, and he touches home plate, and he's trotting back to the dugout. All of a sudden, this big wiener comes flying at him, and he catches it.
Right.
And then today somewhere, I think maybe on an MLB Network show, they showed it laying on the ground. And I can see why Rocco is concerned. It is there is moisture trap, so it's you can picture this if you go to the grocery store to buy a summer sausage. It's wrapped in its own, it's not really a rind, but there's an internal packaging that you basically leave on the sausage until as you cut it off, then you peel that off and don't eat that.
Right.
But then it's also in a plastic, an actual wrapper.
Right.
Well, that's bigger, far bigger than the sausage, and you could see on it that moisture is trapped between the sausage and that wrapper. And so it's if that thing, if I understand, at first I laughed when Rocco talked about it, but it would be, you'd need a hazmat team, I think, to deal with it. Once it comes unsheathed.
He's a smart dude. He's examined the sausage closely and realizes that that you need to, you can't. I mean, it isn't inanimate in that it just lays there. They, like you said, they throw it at each other. So there's risk of opening and explosions, and it's not. Sometimes when you think of summer sausage, like you said, you've got that kind of tight package. It looks like maybe you'll never get it open. Yeah. But this is not the case. So they've got to be careful.
Yeah. And given Carlos Correa's luck in recent years, I would guess what will happen is he will finally get going, hit a couple of home runs, and then he'll have to go on the disabled list with E. coli because he's the one that the sausage splatters onto.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. Is that now I'm getting back into COVID times? Can you get into trouble, but from touching the sausage and its contents, or do you have to ingest them? And what does that mean exactly? So.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of contact. If you come into contact with it and then you touch your eyes, certainly in your mouth, you'd be at risk.
Right.
I would think it could transfer if it gets ripe enough. But hey, you gotta take some risks in life, and so far it's paying off swimmingly for the Twins, who had gotten off to a terrible start and have basically undone almost all of that.
Yeah, they're over 500. They still have kind of a mountain to climb, or a decently sized knoll against the Guardians, but they've caught up basically to the Tigers and the Royals in the loss column. So that's they don't have such it doesn't look like they were like the White Sox were like 15 games out of first place. It was never that bad. It was never like White Sox bad, but they were significantly behind the Guardians, and now it's 4 games or something like that. So
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first, like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Hey, Atlanta. Apple is open for small business. That's right. We're here to make starting and running your business simpler. With privacy and security built in on all devices, it's easy for you to protect your customers' data. And if you need hardware or software support, you'll get advice from business experts at no cost whatsoever. So you can focus more on the soup du jour and less on, the other stuff. At Apple, we're open for your small business. Go to apple.com/small business or visit an Apple store to learn more.
They're in decent, they got off to the horrendous start where like the bottom of the order, and they had a lot of injuries. The bottom of the order wasn't hitting at all. And like we said, Kyle Farmer's literally hitting 100. They had a bunch of guys like that. Now it's, Carlos Santana's heated up at age 38. And I'm trying to think of like some kind of musical thing to do with him, but he's all smooth now.
Yeah.
But so they're coming on.
Yeah, the Guardians are 19-9. Tell you,
I don't quite get it. They've had a lot of injuries, and they are terrible hitting team. Like they don't strike the ball well, that kind of hitting. So their StatCast numbers are not very red. But they're Stephen Vogt is working on that AL Manager of the Year job already, so he's doing well in that regard. But they don't have Bieber anymore, and some other people are out of the lineup. But Josh Naylor has been hitting.
Yeah.
So the Canadian slugger.
Yeah, it is interesting how when they finally get a little offense, they can win. Apparently, Tito was holding back the offense. Who knew?
Right.
Yeah,
well, now I think they've gotten off to such a good start that he's already talking about coming back. He's sick of being away. Really. And so I don't know. People have, why don't the White Sox hire him? It's like, why would he get within 10,000 miles of that?
He talked about it when he retired, that he doesn't have any hobbies. And he worried that he wouldn't have anything to do. And apparently it took a month, and he's already like, all right, I got nothing.
Right. I got the itch, man. I need it. I need a lineup card. Give me a lineup card. So
a team that didn't get off to as good a start, the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim and LAX, whatever their official address is. The one thing they had going for him was that Mike Trout was Mike Trout again. He was hitting homers, playing great, stealing bases. And then maybe that wasn't the best idea. He informed the media today. We're recording this on Tuesday in a teary announcement in the dugout that he has torn his meniscus, and he will be out of action for an indeterminate amount of time. As people from Chicago, we're all meniscus experts because of Derek Rose.
Right.
So we can tell you that there's 2 ways you can approach it. You can just trim off the part that's torn, and you get back pretty fast.
Right.
And then you look forward to the early onset arthritis that comes with that. Or they actually go in and fix it and you miss a much longer period of time. And I haven't seen yet what Mike's plans are, but if he is smart, he will get it fixed, especially on this awful Angels team. There's no reason
to hurry.
Your need is science for them.
Well, he was, I kind of look at his season, and like you mentioned, he got off to a good start in two ways. I mean, I don't think anybody was expecting the Angels to compete without Ohtani, so it's not like that was a serious goal, although I think he was making it look good. But Trout, hadn't been quite himself either in recent years in terms of, he's done a little bit here and there as far as the really good plays or offense, but he hasn't been kind of that Superman. I mean, he has turned 30, so I guess it makes sense to a certain degree. So, I mean, he was trying to kind of get that Mike Troutness back, if nothing else. If the Angels weren't going to compete, maybe he was still going to be, quite the feared offensive and sometimes defensive weapon. But so, I mean, but you're right. For as far as competition competing for this year, they've already sunk out of the race. So it's really hard to be, White Sox out of it, but they're like the next best thing to that. So they have no hope. So he should, like you say, take the long way home.
Well, and he hadn't got off to as good a start as I thought, although he was hitting lots of home runs. He was leading the American League in home runs with 10.
Right.
He's only hitting 220. He was only getting on at a 325 clip. He did have 6 stolen bases in 7 attempts.
Right.
But he was slugging .541 because of the 10 homers out of his 24 hits.
And those stats, I mean, as you know, Andy, those percentages, it's volatile. They can jump up and down.
Your batting average can go all over the place with a month into the season.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, it looked, not to talk too much about the Twins, but Carlos Santana looked absolutely cooked at age 38. And, his StatCast numbers were terrible. He wasn't hitting. It's like he went up there with a pool noodle. But the sausage comes along. He gets hot. He hits, 4 home runs in 6 days or whatever it is. And he's like 78th percentile in hard hit percentage overall, not just in his streak. So that stuff, he hadn't gotten his OPS over 700 only because it was so low as before. So with the power and the stolen bases, to me, it looked like Trout was, kind of closer to back to his old self. So
10 homers in 29 games is pretty good.
Yes.
We saw that with not with the power, but Nico Horner had gotten off such a terrible start. He got hot for a week and raised his batting average 100 points.
Yeah, right.
So it can happen pretty quickly. What the thing that jumped out at me looking quickly here was with Trout. It's the same thing with Tyler O'Neill. Tyler O'Neill, 9 homers and 11 RBIs.
I was going to say 8 RBIs. Yes.
And Mike Trout, 10 homers, 14 RBIs.
I fear that Tyler is going to, explode his obliques or something, doing some kind of great physical deal. He's just freakishly muscular man, but he got away from the Cardinals seem to be kind of bad luck for guys. I don't know. So he went to Boston, which has kind of been in a downturn, and he's, except for the RBIs, mashing the heck out of the ball. So,
the Cubs, they played on Sunday Night Baseball appropriately enough on Sunday. And it cracks me up. I love hearing the national opinion of your team, especially since God knows where Carl Ravitch gets his info. But it was funny to hear it the other way, where Alex Cora was talking about, they were asking him about getting Tyler O'Neill. They got him for basically nothing. And the thing that cracked me up was he was pleasantly surprised by what a good outfielder Tyler O'Neill is. Tyler won the Gold Glove twice in the National League. I mean, it was but here's why I enjoyed it. It's the left field Gold Glove, and it's very clearly nobody takes that seriously.
Right.
It's like it doesn't even count. Like in that same game, another 2-time Gold Glove in left field in the National League, Ian Happ, with a runner on third and nobody out, was playing inside the Green Monster. I think like he had opened the door and gotten in.
That's where Manny P.
There's a pop-up that any normal left fielder runs in, catches, and holds the runner at third because it's not deep enough to score him.
Right.
And he couldn't get within 30 feet of it. Dansby Swanson was going all Willie Mays trying to catch it over. You could actually see Dansby thinking in his mind, I have to catch this. And as I'm catching it, like start to turn my body to like make a blind throw home. And he just didn't catch it, which didn't matter. If he'd caught it, they still would have lost. But yeah. Like, hey, Ian, maybe move in a couple of steps.
Well, that's the weird thing about the Green Monster. People having listened to how people align themselves defensively, you do play really deep. I mean, you play almost on the warning track and most of the time, and it's still not very far. So it's like that. Even if he was deep, it doesn't make sense to me how he couldn't have made up that.
He didn't
ground.
get anywhere near it, which was. They had a shot in that game from the scoreboard, and they showed it happened to be when the Red Sox were batting. You could see Happ, and all I thought watching it, this had nothing to do with Ian Happ, was how uncomfortable it has to be to play left in that place.
Yeah, right.
Because you are, no matter where you play, you feel like you're too shallow. Like in every other park, you're not going to stand where you're standing, and I would think it takes a while to just get over I feel like I should back up. Or this sucks. I don't want to be.
I wonder if it's. Does it feel loud? That's a good question. Does it feel louder or something? Just because the fans are so right there. I mean, there aren't a lot of fans on the Green Monster, but they're up there and
they're drunk.
Must be loud, and they're drunk and tall.
They're sitting at bars. Those little 4-seat bars they sit at up there. They're pounding them.
Those one ticket up there is for the Yankees series in July is $530. And that's not secondary market. The Red Sox sell it at that price, or sold it. Jesus. So that's
It's that dynamic ticket pricing. Theo brought that with to the Cubs.
Oh, thanks.
I'm no fan of the wave, but
yes,
the one time I did enjoy it was when Red Sox fans would do the wave pre-monster seats. They would pause. So it would go around, it would get to the left field corner, and then it wouldn't happen for a minute, and then the center field people would do. Like they were waiting for the wave to actually cross the monster.
Right.
And then they would do it. I thought that was very funny. And so when they would show that, I would be like, oh, that's pretty clever. And then.
Oh, so clever, those New Englanders.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Actually, they were probably stopping to yell racial epithets at the wall before they stood up. Let them have it. Maybe I shouldn't give him such credit.
Drown the fucker. Sorry.
I enjoyed this today until the ninth inning. There's the Tigers and Cardinals were playing a doubleheader, and Jack Flaherty was pitching against his old club.
Yeah.
And Jack took a lot of crap from Cardinal fans. A lot. Mostly they acted like it was because, he was really good for a while. Then he got hurt. He wasn't so good. But they basically he's too woke. He was too woke for Cardinal fans. They didn't like Jack. He was, and here he is for the first time pitching against them. And he struck out the first 7 Cardinals today. And I thought that had to feel awesome for Jack Flaherty. Just shove it up everybody's ass. He struck out 14, and then the Tigers blew his lead in the 9th, and the Cardinals won.
I love to make jokes like, revenge game, players who don't really have any reason to get their Irish up, if you will, like a Flaherty, over, playing an opponent. But I don't know if the team made him mad. Maybe a little bit.
No, they didn't. But he knows by doing it, he's irritating those fans who gave him so much shit. Yeah, I doubt that he hated his former teammates, but I guarantee he was enjoying himself today.
It did, I know he's had injury problems, but it also seemed like the Cardinals didn't quite know how to get him right either. And he seems to have gotten himself right. It's not, he hasn't been perfect this year, but he's shown a lot of signs. It isn't totally surprising to me that he struck out 14 of the 13 batters he faced or whatever. So, I thought it was kind of like, I think I told you that I took a nap this afternoon and I realized that Shelby Miller lost that game. Shelby Miller, kind of the Jack Flaherty of his time a little bit with the Cardinals before. He's the one who blew the game or was on the mound for the blowing. So all the revenge that Jack Flaherty got, Shelby Miller gave back. in the 10th. So
Shelby Miller, lots of Cub connections.
True.
He's a former Cub. The reason Dansby got traded to the Braves, right, was because Dave Stewart had to get Shelby Miller. And didn't the Cardinals trade Shelby Miller to get Jason Hayward?
Yeah, that's right.
And then Hayward played in the LDS against the Cubs and was so impressed by the fans that he decided to weigh down the Cubs' payroll they still have a deferred payment to him. But he gave a locker room speech and they won a World Series, and we're all fine.
So we're fine with that.
So it's Miller made one degree of Shelby Miller. It's amazing.
And he has, Dave Stewart, disastrous turn as GM, but Miller, he's had a good season, and like everybody, he's been hurt very much lately in the past few years. But everybody kind of wanted to be there for the Shelby Miller rebound, like he's on the Dodgers and he's on the Giants, and we put him in the bullpen, and it's been working. He didn't have a good game today, but he's been kind of a valuable member of the Tigers bullpen. And even, that Atlanta trade with Hayward, he made the All-Star team with the Braves, which is, the Braves put a lot of pitchers in the All-Star game. You wouldn't think Shelby Miller was one of them.
Yeah, it was one of the great seasons of all time. He had a 3.02 ERA, and he lost 17 games.
Right.
So the very next year, he gets traded to the Diamondbacks, and he loses 12 games, but he earned them 6.15 ERA that year.
Right.
With the Cubs, his Cub career was prestigious. He pitched in 3 games, and his career ERA for the Cubs is 31.50.
I was just about to ask why he didn't get more run, but maybe you just told me.
That's why. It is. He's played now for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is his 9th team.
Yeah.
In 12 years. It's very Edwin Jackson-y. You will be gratified to know that the 31.50 for the Cubs, that is his highest ERA.
Okay, there wasn't anything worse.
He didn't. Right. He didn't top it anywhere else, which really would have been.
How many appearances was that?
3.
Okay.
3 games, 2 innings. He gave up 7 hits, 7 runs, all earned. How about this though? This is really hard to do. He did not allow a home run.
Well, I know it's 2 innings, but still, these days.
So
what season was that? 2019?
21.
21. Okay.
The year that the Cubs pretended to try to compete, and then they traded everybody away for pennies.
Right.
So 7 hits and 5 walks in 2 innings pitched, and 7. He had to have maximized the runs allowed, because it's 12 base runners at the most.
Yeah.
That's 7 runs out of 12 base runners. And he got 6 outs. So it's impressive. Good job, Shelby. The Cubs last week played the Astros of Houston, who are terrible now. Clearly, Dusty left, and everything went away. But it's mainly, we think, well, maybe not completely, but a lot of it is they have injuries, especially to their pitching, which in the wake of Dusty Baker leaving a team, that never. I would blame more of it on Dusty, except for the fact that nobody thinks he was actually making pitching decisions at any point during his time in Houston.
No,
he was. They had a buzzer, and would have got him in trouble.
They had a buzz. They had a Jose Altuve's old buzzer.
Yeah, they would just buzz him, and he'd be like, "Oh, he'd go out to the mound. He didn't even know whether to single right or left. He didn't know who was warming up, but it was bullpen time."
Right.
And Dusty would go out with his surgical gloves on and his wristbands. And he would just, take the ball, and that was fine.
I'm imagining him now doing that, going to the oven, opening some brownies, and opening the oven door for some brownies and his toothpicks to see if they're done.
Yep. Oh, the toothpick would come in super handy.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe I didn't know that's why he did it.
Maybe. It's not, but it's funny to imagine him baking. Dusty Baker, get it?
Baker, yes, exactly.
That was an accident.
The Astros are 9-19, but according to Pythagoras, and Pythagoras, a huge baseball fan, it should be 12-16. So Joe Espada got to fire the 3 games, underachieving by 3 games already. So here's how well the season is going. They come to Chicago, and in April, the third week of April, and after they leave, Patrick Mooney in The Athletic writes an article about, is Justin Verlander the kind of pitcher the Cubs should acquire at the trade deadline?
Right. The hell's going on in Houston? What do you mean?
Maybe give them, I don't know, 40 games before you start selling off all their pieces for them.
I don't think they have editors right now. They just, if the guy has an idea, they're going to publish the story.
Oh, it's whatever you want. And it's very clear. I was reading I'll make this joke, and then John Greenberg I will say this, but John Greenberg will laugh because they always ran into a problem with me when I turned in all my articles. But I was reading an article about the Premier League, and the style was all off. You know, periods outside the quotation marks instead of inside. There was all kinds of like noticeable stuff. And I'm like, what is going on? Oh, like 12 million and no space between the 12 and the million. And it kept doing it over and over again. I realized that like that's like the European like way of doing that. And they're either not editing their stuff or the editor over there just doesn't care. The reason I say that was John would always get mad at me because it's a habit I will never break. I double space after every period.
Like an English class.
Yes. Yeah. And that's just the way I type. I'm too old. I can't. I know I'm growing still. I'm growing.
Too old. I'm too bleeping blind.
I'm not gonna change it. What I would do is when I finished my column before I turned it in, I would go in and I would do a global replace of 2 spaces to 1. But apparently it wouldn't catch them all. And then he would complain about how he's like, I never have to change anything in your article except I have to go fix your fucking spacing every time. Well, sorry. That's what, God gave me these gifts to entertain America, but he did not give me the gift to single space after periods. Sorry, I can't do it. The Astros, they have a guy who I don't know if he pitched in the Cubs series. If he did, I missed him. I wanted to see him. They have a pitcher named Parker Mushinski.
Yeah.
Mush-Insky. I really wanted to see Parker Mush-Insky. His ERA only 11.25, much better than Joel Kuhnel's, which is 18. So Spencer Arrighetti, who I don't think is related to Dave Righetti, but he's got Righetti in his name.
Maybe going back, to the old country. Yeah. Maybe they lopped off a prefix at some point.
Of their 6 of Baseball Reference can't figure out what to do with them, so they gave them 6 starters. Here are their ERAs: 1.65. That's Ronel Blanco, the 30-year-old who threw a no-hitter. Then 7.46. JP France. Christian Javier, 1.54, but he's only pitched 4 times. Hunter Brown, 9.68.
No
Framber,
relation.
2.6. And then Spencer, 10.97. Those are very high. And Josh Hader has already given up more runs for the Astros this year than he gave up for the Padres last year.
Already?
Yes.
Oh, my.
He already has. And he's already 50% of the way to the walks. That he only walked 10 guys last year. He's already walked 5.
Right.
In 10 innings. So things are not going great. The other big news is that today they had to have the talk with Jose Abreu, who is his slash line. This is amazing. He's batting .099 with a 156 on base and a 113 slug. That's a OPS of 269. His OPS plus is minus 20.
Yeah.
So if 100 is average,
right,
0 is terrible. What is minus 20?
It's frightening to think about just how weak that is. But they're sending him down to West Palm, right? So
which is what you do with the elderly,
right? He's going to go down to Boca Vista,
South Florida. Yep. Del Boca Vista, and some neighbor will have an astronaut pen that writes upside down, and he'll be fascinated by that, and then he can run for HOV or HOA president. He's got it all look forward to. He's cashing a big check this year still.
Right. Did you bring the fungos? Yeah. So he doesn't have to go because of his seniority,
right?
But if there, it does not surprise me. I mean, I don't know how the conversation went. I wasn't there, and I also don't speak Spanish, but very conversationally, I listen, but I don't understand. But he's seems willing to do it. The writing is on the wall. He's a practical person. He's proud, but not blindly. So he was always on the White Sox, a guy who, you kind of pulled for, seemed like a good guy. Came over to the United States from Cuba when he was 25 or 26 or whatever. And so that's difficult to do. We're not talking about an 18-year-old or an 8-year-old where you can kind of blend yourself in. You're pretty well established at that age. So, that's not an easy thing to do. So, he's not the only one. I don't know pretty soon you got to send Bregman down there too. And he's not hitting very well. Yordan Alvarez is not lighting the world on fire. I thought Yordan Alvarez was probably the best hitter in the league last year at some point. So, and Kyle Tucker, he's doing okay. He's doing pretty good, but not lighting the world on fire. They have many, many other problems. So they can't send everybody down to Boca Vista.
Bregman is struggling, but his OPS is 84 points higher than Abreu's.
Right.
It's 64. I want to commend you for saying that Jose Abreu came to the United States when he was 25 and I can attest this because I can see you not doing the air quotes around 25.
Yeah.
That birth certificate is, it's on parchment. It's a scroll. The White Sox were very, it's got wood handles on it. Oh, Kenny had to blow the dust off of it. What does that say? Who cares? All right, close it up. He's getting $19.5 million this year, regardless of whether he's playing in extended spring training in West Palm, playing for the Astros, or just going home. So yeah, it is. I mean, you do commend him for actually saying, you know what, I'm gonna at least try to turn this around.
Right.
I'm not just gonna take my money and go home.
It's a sunk cost at this point if things don't turn around. I mean, they're paying him what they're paying him, and there's nothing anybody can do about that. But he can, possibly turn things around. But it was, I was paying attention last year. He's the guy who was on the White Sox. He was a big name, and it took him all year basically to get going. And by the end, he was better. He clearly diminished, getting old, whatever. The percentages were telling us a lot, the underlying stats about how he was doing, no matter what his slash line was. And he had at least an active postseason. I remember he hit a couple home runs, and it looked like he was kind of on his way back a little bit. But when you get to 37, your bat speed disappears, and it going to West Palm very well might not make that much of a difference. So this could be kind of a sort of an unhappy end to a good, nice little career.
I don't think it's going to get that much better for the Astros because their plan B at first base is Boys in the Hood director John Singleton, and he's 32. He was out of baseball for years. It was kind of a feel good story last when he came back, but he really wasn't very good.
Right.
And he's not good again. I mean, he's better.
He's better than he was the first time he was trying to, with the Astros, but he's not. He's basically hitting singles.
Yeah,
singles
slugging
a ton.
He's slugging 286.
Right.
Which is more than twice what Abreu was. So, we've doubled our production at first.
They just brought up a dude from the minors, not to talk like Dusty. They just brought up a dude, Joey Loperfido. And he's a rookie, and I don't know if he's leading the minors in home runs or he was up there. So, and he's going to play first in the meantime.
Oh, that's
so
good.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see if he's. I think Keith Law had him as like their number 4, 5, or 6 best prospect. So we're not talking about a top 100 prospect, and I don't know if that's the Astros, like we said, have so many things going wrong with them offensively and the pitching injuries that. This appears to be a pretty real, whatever their record is, whatever their not good record is, it seems to be pretty accurate. So Dusty knew, and he bailed.
You were talking about revenge games before, and we had an odd a conversation that didn't need to be had over the weekend. So the Cubs had DFA'd Garrett Cooper, and the Jed was hanging out with his former pitching coordinator, now general manager of the Red Sox, Craig Breslow, because the Cubs were in Fenway. And during the game on Saturday, they worked out. Maybe it was Friday. They worked out a trade. So the Cubs were going to get a little cash, and the Red Sox would get Garrett Cooper.
Right.
And what cracked me up was the Sunday Night Baseball guys were talking about how, clearly they must have had an understanding that the Red Sox wouldn't activate Cooper until the Cubs left town. And I was like, no, Cub fan, we've seen Garrett Cooper. It would have been perfectly fine for him to have played first base against them. I like that. You can have him, but no. Wait till we're out of town before you unleash the talent that is Garrett Cooper on us.
Were they doing that just for his benefit?
Being too emotional about the
just
playing?
I don't know.
I played here for 3 weeks. It was the best 3 weeks of my life.
Just to pump him up a little bit, I don't know.
They got the Cubs let Cooper. I guess we could transition because after the Astros struggled with all their injuries, I want to talk about the Cubs.
Wow.
Inexplicably in first place, despite not having they got 5 innings out of Justin Steele before he fell down and went boom. And Kyle Hendricks, they had to make up a phony injury to make him stop pitching for a little while. And Jameson Taillon had missed the early part of the season. The great Julian Merriweather is injured. A key part of their bullpen is missing. Their right fielder, Seiya Suzuki, is injured. Their center fielder, Cody Bellinger, who had just started to hit, ran into the bricks. We forgot that there's...
Oh, yeah, man. There's
bricks behind that dead ivy that hasn't come in yet. You could see them, Cody. It's not July. You could see the bricks coming. He was hurt. There's other guys that are out. And the Cubs went into first place yesterday. But I completely lost my train of thought.
Despite all these bad things happening.
What my segue was going to be. It's about Matt Mervis. Because Garrett Cooper was released so that Matt Mervis could come on the roster because the Cubs, at some point, Craig Counsell looked at his bench, and after he shuddered, he realized none of them batted left-handed. And he's like, hey, Jed, maybe, how about one? Could you throw one in? He's like, how about Mervis? I said, well, he bats left-handed. He doesn't hit, but he bats left-handed, sure. And so Matt Mervis has come up, and his problem last year when he got to the Cubs, and Keith Law, we just referenced him, had warned people before the season. They said, I don't think Mervis can hit the big leagues because he doesn't handle velocity. And he was right. Anything hard, anything fast, and Matt couldn't hit it. And it's remained true now. So if I'm
still true.
Cooper, I'm like, it's still true. I'm like, wait a minute, but for this guy, this is the guy I get. Well, there was a flurry of moves, and they also had to bring up Pete Crow Armstrong, and Pete had the same issue last year, and his David Ross could not have handled him worse the final month of the season. When he did let him bat, he almost always had him bunt. Then he would let him swing away. And I think Pete, in the middle of it, was like, was I supposed to bunt? And he couldn't get consistent at bats. And we're trying to win a division here. It's like, yeah, well, you're not getting any production out of center field because you had to move Cody to first. So you just play the kid and don't worry about it. He was really struggling at Iowa when they called him up. And he thought, oh, this can't be good. And he's actually hitting now. Right. So I have a theory as to why he was struggling at Iowa. I want to see if you think this is true.
Okay.
One of the issues, if that's your deficiency, is that you don't hit velocity, and they send you to AAA, there's really nothing you can do about it. Because if you don't see good pitchers with velocity in AAA, if it was a good pitcher with velocity, he wouldn't be in AAA.
Right.
And that's why guys tend to feast on pitching in AAA. Everybody's numbers seem inflated. Pete's were terrible. And I think he did this. I think he's a smart kid. I think what he did was Pete, knowing he couldn't face pitchers who threw harder, was actually batting 10 feet in front of home plate.
Trying to simulate?
Yes. You know how when the College World Series, College Softball World Series, they will show you and they do it in the Little League World Series too, where they'll show the speed of a pitch.
Yeah.
And then tell you what the equivalent would have been from 60 feet 6 inches.
Yeah, you see that a lot. Yeah.
And he's like, okay, this guy's throwing 82. If I stand 10 feet up, it's throwing 101.
I'm doing the math in my head here. Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah. And he's like, this will help me. And it did. So I want to give Pete credit because I know that's why he did it. Although he didn't do it.
You don't, there's no rule that says
right. You have to. No, there's not. I mean, it's not like guys wipe out that back line. The first batter basically torches it so that everybody can put their foot in the bucket and get as close to the catcher as possible. And they're supposed to be out, and they're not. No, that's fine. In fact, I think it was Sunday night again. They were showing, was it Rafael Devers? Is like one of the few hitters who doesn't stand at the very back of the box. He stands like right in the middle. And like Eduardo Perez was like fascinated by the fact that, Devers stands there. Because you see it sometimes, especially back when we used to be awash with knuckleballers.
Yes.
Where guys would move all the way up to the front of the box to try
before that last dance.
Right. Catch the ball before it knuckles. It's like, I got news for you. It's knuckling the whole way, guys.
Right.
It's not magically waiting till the last second and then finally moving. It should be doing it the whole time.
I've never, really the only thing, like, you talk about erasing that back line. That's one thing where the umpire or the catcher might get into it with a player, but you don't really see anybody get on players for standing too close to the plate or standing anywhere else in the box. It almost does seem like it's a giant suggestion rather than a rule. So
I think the only reason they care about the back one is obviously it makes it more likely that there'll be catcher interference.
Right.
And catchers don't want that. Number one, they don't want to get hit with the bat. But number two, that's an error on them, and you get to go first.
Right.
And they don't want that. So that's why they would have to at least pretend to enforce that.
Right.
But I don't remember who it was, but I remember as a kid, like when Arnie Harris wasn't showing large-breasted women or the lake, he would.
Hey.
There were a few games where they would literally the camera would zoom in on the batter's box, and Harry and Steve would watch in amazement as whoever the leadoff hitter is would just completely wipe it out.
Right.
Before a pitch had been thrown.
Like they had painted it.
Yeah, they were very offended. You know how much work I put in on that? I would guess none. Well, yeah, I watched it though. Yeah, Harry Marla Collins isn't out there painting the box. At least not that one. But I would just say he has obviously he has a limited roster to work with, but I'm going to go way out on a limb. I think Craig Counsell is actually pretty good at his job.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing, where there have been too many things gone wrong, and the Cubs record is still competitive, that you have to think he has the reason, or one of the big reasons why they're maximizing what they do have. Because I was thinking at some point, like, man, why are the Cubs still winning games if all these players are not out there? So, I tend to be someone who thinks of the players being more important than the manager. And I think that's usually true, but, Counsell might be worth that contract that he was holding out for. So
I am completely I just gave Craig a lot of credit, but I'm in the camp that we give coaches in every sport way too much credit.
Mm-hmm.
And if people listen to this podcast last week, I went off for a while about the vaunted pitching infrastructure of the Cubs and how the reason that it chaps me when the marquee guys go on and on about how brilliant the Cubs are at developing pitching is I didn't like the way that like Breslow and those guys were positioning it as we've got all these wonderful tools and we've all these geniuses and we're going to take these pitchers and we're going to show them, like, we're going to adjust their grip and we're going to do all this stuff and we're going to turn them into great pitchers. And it's like, okay, they're doing all the work still, right? Like that guy has to make all the pitches. You're taking a very talented player and you're trying to improve him a couple of percentage points, which might be the difference between him being okay and being really good. So you do deserve some credit for that, but you don't get all the credit. He's the one throwing the pitch. And I took it all the way back to, I feel like the people to blame for this are college football and basketball coaches, where sports writers needed an in in big programs. They needed access. And so they would kiss the ass of the coach because the coach was staying and the players were coming and going. And all of a sudden, all these coaches were geniuses, and they were imparting all their wisdom on these players. And it was turning these unformed lumps of clay into these great players. And it's like, you know what? The players are the reason still.
Right.
They're the ones playing the game. And I do think coaches and managers deserve some credit. They don't have an easy job, but I feel like we're way too, and I think that the whole like analytics thing, while it has incredible amount of value.
That up. Yes.
I feel like it's a lazy way to cover baseball is just to always credit the khaki nerds with the reason that they find good players and they win games.
It's kind of a lazy way to cover it, and it's a sort of a lazy way to operate a team. Not necessarily lazy. Yeah. I shouldn't say that, but it is a way to, looking at it obviously cynically, it is a way to keep prices of salaries down of players. Yeah. To say, well, all right, well, we don't necessarily want to spend big on the free agent market or trade for whatever players who are maybe cost a little bit more, because we can make up that difference with the pitching lab and the hitting lab and all that stuff. And it's just not that it is smart to include major league development and that kind of thing as part of your overall program, but that is not the end all be all. I mean, it's like the White Sox, the Sox, and they've got to take more pitches and draw some more walks and be more patient and do that kind of thing. And that is for professionals, for major leaguers mostly. That's not the kind of thing that coaching really has anything to do. They're beyond that. Yep. It's like the players innately have to have these qualities in them to be able to tell a strike from a ball. It's really hard to make a huge difference with that, with coaching, with older players. I mentioned like Jose Abreu coming to America at whatever age he was, not a kid anymore. And, when people come from Cuba or Spanish speaking countries in their 20s or Japan or whatever, why does Shohei need an interpreter? Because it's fucking hard to learn how to speak a new language when you're 25 years old. Your brain, that's why, it's better to, if you can do this, learn it as a child. Yep. And that's how the best bilingual speakers are born. It's not from, and it's the same thing with like learning how to hit and play baseball. You to some degree, you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. It's really true. You can make incremental differences. You can maximize things. You can limit weaknesses, blah, blah, blah. But there's only so much you can do as a coach. And I'm just, at this point, I'm kind of repeating what you said, but I obviously agree.
Well, so Moneyball, the book, is over 20 years old now. And people still misunderstand the basic idea behind the book. I mean, it's ironic that the White Sox fans still misunderstand, considering that Hawk was the one explaining it to them. He was just mad about everything. My favorite thing was that Joe Morgan hated that book and then admitted he never read it, and he thought Billy Beane wrote it. And the thing that cracked me up about it was the players that the A's were looking for were guys who had very similar skill sets to Joe Morgan. Yes. One of Joe's most underrated aspects was he got on base. He didn't make outs. And then, he was for a second baseman at the time, he had a lot of power, which second baseman weren't hitting home runs and all that other stuff. But the basic misunderstanding that still exists with Moneyball is the A's were the A's looked around and realized that baseball teams did not they were overvaluing batting average and slugging, and they were undervaluing on base percentage. And because they had decided they were going to run their team on the cheap, the guys that had a lot of value were the guys who got on base. It wasn't, we're going to take these guys and teach them how to get on base. They were looking for players who could do it. And it was easier to find them then because they were the only ones really exploiting that inefficiency. They kind of had their pick of guys who were like, he doesn't do this, but he does this. And that was the thing they were looking for, and what they were trying to do was like teach Scott Hatteberg how to play first base. They weren't trying to teach him how to take pitches and draw walks.
Right.
And I still think even with like the driveline stuff and other stuff, and pitchers go there and they throw the weighted baseballs and they get the magic cameras pointed at them. And there are fans and there are teams, most unfortunately, who think you can just pretty much take anybody and send them up there. And if they'll work hard enough, they'll be better. And it's like, that's just not how it works. There are certain players who they are not getting 100% of whatever out of themselves. And if you give them the tools to get those extra few percent out, then maybe you turn them into a really good player. There are other guys who already are, and they don't have the skill set. They could throw a weighted, I could throw a weighted baseball around my yard for the next 2 weeks, and I wouldn't add a single mile per hour to my fastballs.
Right.
Because and there are real live pitchers who are out there who are already getting the most out of whatever, and putting them in the magic lab isn't going to make them any better. But what had irritated me about it was simply that I felt like the Cubs, they have a willing propaganda arm in Marquee that those guys will repeat anything that the Cubs tell them. And they had positioned it where if a pitcher had success, it was because of something the lab taught him. And if a pitcher failed, it wasn't because their scouting picked the wrong guy. It was because that guy just doesn't have the aptitude to take all these brilliant things we're telling him and applying them. And my favorite example, and I gave this, I'm sure people are like, always going to tell the Tommy Nance story again, but I don't know if you remember Tommy Nance. He was like a reliever in his late 20s, maybe even his 30s. And all of a sudden he's down at Iowa and he is striking everybody out. And it's amazing. And the pitch lab, those guys were fast enough to take credit for how they had fixed him. And he came up, and in the first few games, he was doing it. And then one day, Major League Baseball sent out a memo that said, we're going to start checking pitchers' hands to see if they have any sticky stuff on them. And Tommy Nance sucked immediately because Tommy Nance got better by loading his hand up with pine tar where he could spin the ball, and without it, he couldn't. Right. And I don't see how the pitch lab gets to take credit for a guy, sticking his hand in a thing of syrup and then going out on the mound and throw pitches.
You put your hand in a tub of goo.
You put snot on the ball. I ain't got an arm like yours. Someday you will too. So I enjoy a good rules controversy in any sport. And there was one last night in Milwaukee. Somebody, I don't even know who this guy is, Bowers for the
Jake,
Brewers.
Jake Bowers,
Jake Bowers is batting with runners at first and third in a 1-0 game in the bottom of the ninth. And on a 2-strike pitch, he swings wildly at a pitch from Jason Adam, and it gets by the catcher, Rene Pinto. Not a former Cub pitching prospect, Raynell Pinto. It's different. Probably his kid. I didn't look it up. The runner, Sal Frelick, scores from third. Sal? That's not right. Is it right?
Sal Frelick.
Yeah, there's a 20-some-year-old named Sal.
That's pretty cool, isn't it? It's not dead yet as a name.
The 1,800 people in attendance in Milwaukee all go crazy. The game is tied, but then it wasn't. Because on his backswing, Bowers hit Pinto on the top of the helmet with his backswing.
Yeah.
It was batter's interference. He's out. Ball's dead. Runner goes back to third. Adam managed to get out of it, and the Rays won 1-0. The red-faced Pat Murphy earned his first ejection of the year for going out and losing his mind at the home plate umpire. His argument, and the argument that the Brewers TV guys was making, was that the pitch was already past Pinto before Bauer's bat hit him in the helmet. And therefore, it shouldn't be interference, which I'm sitting in the comfort of my own home going, well, that seems like bullshit. It's either interference or it's not.
Right.
And that apparently is the rule. It doesn't matter. Once he hit the guy in the top of the helmet, it's dead. He can't go to first on the drop third strike, and no runner can advance. Now, I didn't make this connection, but I will give the guys at Bleacher Nation credit for it, because they remembered a very famous time in Cub history when the rule was misapplied to the Cubs' favor. And we talked about this, I think, maybe a couple weeks ago, about Max Scherzer when he melted down in Game 5 of the NL. He came out of the bullpen, and the Nats had the lead. They were going to win the series. And the Cubs managed to reach base every possible ways. Well, one of the ways they reached was Javi Baez reached on a drop third strike, but he hit Matt Wieters in the helmet with his bat.
Right.
And they did not call batter's interference when they should have. He should have been out, and the runner should not have been able to advance.
Well, I think you were right to say that, like, the location of where the pitch is doesn't matter, because the whole contact between the bat and the catcher like changes whatever happens at that point anyway. So it's like the play it's still a live, a play until the guy hits the catcher in the head. So it's not like where the pitch. I mean, it's crazy that they would kind of think that. I understand why in the heat of a moment maybe you lose track of what the rules are, but that doesn't make any sense. That it would be like that. So.
Yeah, because I'm sure Pat Murphy knows the rule.
He's just trying.
He knew that if they called batter interference, it didn't matter. The TV guys were trying to question the timing of it, saying that the ball is already a wild pitch. So how can the batter hitting the catcher in the helmet affect it? Other than the fact that I would think that if I got hit in the head with a bat while I was trying to figure out where a ball was, I would be less likely to figure out where the ball was.
Because if the ball, let's say hypothetically, if the ball rolls just a little bit behind the guy, he could still go and get it and prevent runners from moving up. But the bat hitting him in the head kind of screws that up.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, the ball was well past him, and if Bowers hadn't hit him in the helmet, it would, he wouldn't have been able to stop the runners from moving up. That's true. But just because the ball is behind the catcher doesn't mean that he couldn't go and get it and stop the runners from moving up. Good for that umpire keeping his head, and Murphy couldn't pull one over on him. It's
one of those things where it was obvious watching it that Bowers hitting the catcher in the head did not affect his ability to stop that runner from scoring at third.
Right.
But do you really want to add another judgment call?
Right.
Where now you've got the umpire trying to decide, all right, would he have gotten to that ball and would they have been able to make a play? You can't do that. You're going to get that call wrong 90% of the time. You just have to have a hard and fast rule.
Well, and that seems consistent with other rules that are kind of like that. It's sort of like people kind of want, it isn't very often, if it ever happens anymore, that, if there's a ball that goes into the stands, you kind of, you get a set amount of bases, or you get one base from where you are. You don't get, and it's like, well, the runner would have made it around anyway. The umpires don't get into those games of judging that kind of stuff. It's like, well, as soon as the weird thing happens, as soon as the bat hits the helmet, or as soon as the ball goes into the stands, that's where the runners have to stop, or you get one base more. So there's other instances in baseball rules where that's how it operates. So it's consistent in that respect.
I mean, you could make an argument that if you're gonna change the batter's interference rule, then change the catcher's interference rule, and then make the umpire try to decide whether you would have hit that pitch if you hadn't ticked his glove or not.
Right.
You wouldn't do that. You'd think that was absurd. So this is just as absurd as that would be.
Yes.
So that was fun. I enjoyed it because it made the Brewers mad and it benefited the Cubs. That was why I enjoyed it. Right. Now, when it happens against the Cubs, I will be very upset, and I will demand.
You'll figure out a way to adapt.
But until that time, I won't do that. Last thing I want to talk to you about, because nobody can talk about it enough, is uniform chat. We found out over the weekend.
Yeah.
Jeff Passan got himself a hold of an internal memo from the Players Association leadership to the players that Major League Baseball is just decided they're going to pin all the uniform stuff on Fanatics or on Nike. Fanatics is in the clear.
Nike.
All Nike's fault.
And they're going to fix it. You guys are good.
And they're going to fix it eventually. And the things they're going to fix most especially they're going to go back to the 3-inch letters on everybody's nameplate instead of the little dinky 2-inch letters, which look ridiculous and childish. They're going to go back to actually dyeing the pants and the jerseys in the same place, so that there's a chance that if you have gray or blue, that they actually match, which is kind of nice. They're going to fix the zipper. I didn't even know the zipper was a thing, but apparently the new zipper, not so good. They're going to go back to the old zipper. And the next year, they're basically going to go back to the old pants. They're just going to have to struggle through with the new pant, with these pants for this year. But there was no timeline on anything, except they said this will all be addressed at least by opening day next year. And so now, as a fan, to me, I mean, I don't care if a player blows his pants out on the thing. I might add something depending on the player. The only one of those things that affects my enjoyment of the game is the chintzy letters on the back of the jersey.
Yeah,
these jerseys look ridiculous with the tiny little letters, and we know they can fit them because the Royals in spring training went back to the big letters and it looked fine. And then after they got okayed by that, then baseball called them back and said, "This is great, but you can't do this when the season starts. You got to go back to the tiny letters. We're not going to give you an exemption."
Is that still then the reason why they might not change until next year, because they couldn't get it all done?
I think I know why it's not going to. That's the part I don't think is going to happen as quickly as it should. So as a fan, if they just fix that this year, I'm perfectly fine. Yeah. Carlos Rodon can sweat through his jersey as much as I want, as he wants. I don't care. When I see the center field view of the pitcher, I want to be aesthetically pleased by the name, and I'm not right now. And I was at Dick's Sporting Goods the other day looking for sporting goods. That's a good place to look for them. And I saw one of the replica Cub jerseys. It was a Seiya Suzuki replica jersey.
Uh-huh.
It's a ridiculous $174 for this thing that's made out of tissue paper. I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, that really looks like crap with the little letters." And then the next day, I think I went there on Saturday, and then Sunday I saw the thing from Passon, and I was like, "Oh shit, they're not going to fix the letters this year." And you know why? Because that's not going to match all these replica jerseys that they're trying to sell this year.
Right.
People are going to be like, "Well, it doesn't even look like that. I don't want that." So
that's the part. That's right. You're right.
I think it's the easiest thing to do, right? I mean, they have to swap their jerseys all the time. The next time the clubbies need to get everybody's jerseys ready, you just put the bigger letters back on the back, and within a month or so, your favorite team is back to looking normal. But I have a feeling they're going to be told, why don't you hold off on that a little bit? We got some dinky lettered jerseys to sell, and that's not going to help.
Now, I don't know, what would the actual cost be, and how long would it take to recall all those Dick's Sporting Goods jerseys for fans and take them out of the loop, and then get the bigger letters? They couldn't. It would be one, and then I mean, they've been having trouble getting players, individual teams, their City Connect jerseys or their whatever accessories. I've seen players complain about, "I can't find any shoes." So the only shoes that are available are for little leaguers, and so
only Nick Madrigal has new shoes.
So I can't imagine, if they're having trouble with individual teams, I don't know how they would handle mass sporting goods stores recalling all the jerseys.
It shouldn't be how they make their decision, but we know it's how. And I think looking at how the memo blamed Nike and not Fanatics, I know this came from the Players Association, but this came from a conversation with the league. To me, it was, we're going to play nicey with Fanatics. The Fanatics is the one that would stand to lose if they had to pull all the jerseys with the tiny little letters on the back.
Right.
So I have a feeling it's good news that it's going to go back to the way it was. It's bad news that I don't think it's going to happen anytime as quickly as it should. Because I don't know, but I have a feeling that if a team really wanted to do it, like the Cubs right now are on a road trip, I think by the time they got home, their home pinstripes could have the normal letters back on them.
You would think, but like you astutely pointed out, there's more to it than that.
The one guy I think who has to be crushed by this development is Pete Crow Armstrong. It was like, my name finally fit on my jersey, and now it's not going to again.
So are we? Yeah, maybe he would be like an exception. next year we'll be wondering, well, why don't we have, this giant name of his doesn't fit in this jersey. It looks stupid. I wish we had the Fanatics jersey. So maybe we should be, if you still want to buy shares of Pete Crow Armstrong for the future, maybe that's something to think about. Cashing in on the available Fanatics gear that's out there.
Yeah.
Right now.
I mean, they're going to have drawers full of those little letters. I would think Pete can be like, "Can you just use those, please?" I think they should uniform. All right. Well, so it was good to end on uniform chat.
Absolutely. Hey, Kevin Pillar, by the way, signed with the Angels. So here's your new Mike Trout.
Oh, it could be. You could argue it's an upgrade. You could argue that you'd be insane, but you could argue it. All right. Well, thanks.
Okay. Oh, you're welcome.
Many of us have herpes.
No, I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. Got to congratulate the Dolan family.